I never believed in Bigfoot until I found one living in the abandoned subway tunnels beneath Portland, Oregon. What happened after that discovery became the most terrifying week of my life, proving that some creatures are better left undisturbed in the darkness where they've learned to survive. Let me tell you this story from the beginning because every detail matters. It was September of 1998 and I was 50 years old, working as a tunnel inspector for the Portland Department of Transportation. My name is Robert Mitchell. For 22 years, my job had been venturing into the forgotten underground spaces beneath the city, the abandoned subway tunnels that most people didn't even know existed. Portland has a secret that not many folks outside the city realize. We have over 2 miles of abandoned subway tunnels that were built in the early 1900s, but never completed. The project ran out of money, and the tunnels just sat there empty and forgotten, slowly deteriorating beneath the streets. My job was to inspect these tunnels regularly, checking for water infiltration, gas leaks, structural issues, and pest infestations. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid well, and I liked the solitude. I'd been down in those tunnels hundreds of times over the years. I knew every twist and turn, every station platform, every shaft and access point. I'd seen rats the size of small dogs, dealt with toxic mold, navigated through knee-deep water when the Willamette River flooded, and documented countless cracks in the concrete that threatened to bring the streets above crashing down. I thought I'd seen everything those tunnels had to offer. I was wrong. The trouble started on Tuesday, September 15th, 1998. I remember the date because it was the day after my daughter Sarah's 25th birthday. I'd spent Monday evening at her apartment in the Pearl District, celebrating with cake and watching her blow out candles. Listening to her talk about her new promotion at the bookstore where she worked, I was proud of her, proud that she'd built a good life for herself after her mother and I had divorced 8 years earlier. That Tuesday morning, I reported to the DOT office downtown at 6 a.m., same as always. My supervisor, Tom Brennan, a stocky man with graying hair and perpetually worried expression, handed me my assignment sheet and inspection clipboard. "Got a priority job for you today, Robert," he said, sipping from a Trailblazers basketball mug filled with coffee. "We've been getting complaints from residents on Morrison Street about strange noises coming from underground rumbling, banging, that sort of thing. Could be structural issues, could be homeless people camping down there again. Either way, the city wants it checked out." "Which section?" I asked, reviewing the paperwork. "Section 7, near the old Riverside station. You know the area?" I nodded. Section 7 was one of the deeper parts of the tunnel system, about 60 feet below street level. The Riverside station had been one of the planned stops on the subway line that never was. It still had the original platform, complete with ceramic tilework and iron benches that were now covered in rust and graffiti from urban explorers who occasionally found their way down there. "Yeah, I know it. Haven't been down that way in about 3 months. Last time there was some water infiltration from a storm drain, but nothing serious." "Well, check it out thoroughly," Tom said. "The complaints have been coming in for 2 weeks now, mostly at night between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. People are worried." I gathered my equipment: flashlight, backup flashlight, gas detector, respirator mask, hard hat, rope, first aid kit, camera, and my inspection forms. I also grabbed my lunch pail, which contained 2 turkey sandwiches, a thermos of coffee, and a bag of chips I was expecting to be down there for most of the day. The access point for Section 7 was through a locked gate on 3rd Avenue, hidden behind a construction barrier that had been there so long it had become part of the urban landscape. Nobody paid attention to it anymore. I unlocked the gate with my master key, slipped inside, and locked it behind me. The descent into the tunnels was always the same. A metal ladder bolted to concrete, leading down into darkness that my flashlight could only partially penetrate. The air changed as I climbed down, becoming cooler and damper, carrying that distinctive underground smell of wet concrete. earth, and decay. By the time I reached the bottom, 30 feet below the street, I could hear the muffled sounds of traffic above. Reduced to a distant rumble, I clicked on my flashlight and began walking east towards Section 7. The tunnel was about 15 feet wide and 12 feet high, with curved concrete walls that were stained with mineral deposits and patches of mold. My boots splashed through puddles that never fully dried, and I could hear the squeaking of rats scurrying away from my light. This was my world, my domain. I'd been walking these tunnels twice a week for over 2 decades. The darkness didn't bother me anymore. The isolation didn't bother me. Down here, I was in control. It took about 20 minutes to reach the Riverside station area. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber where the station platform stood, a concrete structure rising about 4 feet above the tunnel floor. The original tilework was still visible in places, cream-colored ceramic with green trim, very Art Deco, very early 1900s. Someone had spray-painted "Abandon all hope" across one wall in red paint, which I documented in a previous report. I climbed up onto the platform and began my inspection, checking the ceiling for cracks, testing for gas with my detector, documenting water damage with my camera. Everything seemed normal at first. The usual deterioration, the usual problems, nothing that would explain strange noises that frightened residents 60 feet above my head. Then I noticed something I hadn't seen before: drag marks on the platform floor. They were recent. The dust patterns made that clear. Something large and heavy had been dragged across the platform, leaving parallel grooves in the accumulated grime. The marks led from the edge of the platform toward the far end of the station, disappearing into a maintenance tunnel that branched off from the main passage. I'd been in that maintenance tunnel before, but not recently. It was a narrow passage, maybe 6 feet wide, that led to an old pump room and some electrical conduit access points. Nothing interesting, nothing that would typically draw attention. But those drag marks were fresh. Within the last few days, I'd estimate I followed the marks with my flashlight, moving cautiously. My gas detector was silent, which was good. No methane buildup, no carbon monoxide. But something had made these marks, and I needed to document it for my report. The maintenance tunnel was darker than the main passage, the walls closing in on both sides. My flashlight beam revealed more drag marks, and now I could see something else. Tracks. Large tracks pressed into the accumulated mud and dust on the floor. I knelt down to examine them more closely, my knees protesting the movement. I wasn't as young as I used to be, and 22 years of climbing up and down ladders had taken its toll on my joints. The tracks were enormous, easily 16 inches long and 7 inches wide. They had 5 distinct toe impressions and what looked like a heel mark, but they weren't shoes or boots. These were bare footprints, but far too large to be human. My first thought was that someone was playing a prank, maybe some urban explorers making fake tracks to scare people. But the impressions were deep, suggesting significant weight, several 100 pounds at least, and the stride length between prints was long, suggesting something tall, something that took large steps. I took several photographs, making sure to include my measuring tape in the frame. For scale, Tom was going to want documentation of this. Whatever had made these prints wasn't a raccoon or a large rat. This was something big, something bipedal, something that shouldn't exist down here. I continued following the tracks deeper into the maintenance tunnel. The passage led to areas I hadn't explored in years, a network of smaller tunnels and chambers that had been sealed off from the main system decades ago, but the seals had been broken. The old metal gates pried open, the padlocks rusted and useless. Someone or something had been using these passages regularly. The tracks led me through a maze of connecting tunnels, each one taking me deeper underground, farther from the surface, farther from any easy escape route. After about 15 minutes of careful navigation, The man-made tunnel suddenly opened into something completely different, a natural cave system that intersected with the constructed. Passages, a geological feature that the original engineers must have encountered during excavation and simply worked around. The cave was enormous, a chamber easily 40 feet across and 20 feet high, with stalactites hanging from the ceiling like stone icicles, and an underground stream running along one wall, creating a constant murmuring sound that echoed off the walls. And there, in the back of the cave, I saw it. A nest of sorts, constructed with surprising care from materials gathered from above ground, old blankets, some still with recognizable patterns, cardboard boxes flattened and layered for insulation, plastic sheeting stretched across a makeshift frame, fabric scraps woven together like a crude tapestry. There were food wrappers scattered around, mostly from fast food restaurants, McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, empty cans of beans and soup, plastic bottles that had once contained water or soda. Someone or something had been living here for quite some time, gathering supplies from above ground, bringing them down to this hidden sanctuary. But what struck me most was the size of everything. The nest wasn't built for a human. The bedding area was at least 8 feet long and 4 feet wide, designed for something much larger than any person. The blankets, when I examined them closer, showed signs of tremendous weight, compressed and worn in patterns that suggested a body far bigger and heavier than mine. That's when I heard it. A sound from deeper in the cave, from shadows my flashlight couldn't penetrate, a low rumbling vocalization that wasn't quite human, but wasn't quite animal either. It had a musical quality to it, almost like throat singing but deeper, more resonant, with harmonics that seemed to vibrate in my chest. My heart hammered against my ribs. Every instinct, every survival mechanism honed over millions of years of evolution screamed at me to run. But I couldn't move. I was frozen, rooted to the spot, my flashlight beam trembling as I tried to locate the source of the sound. Then I saw movement in the shadows. Something large was shifting in the darkness beyond my light's reach, something massive enough that its movement created air currents I could feel on my face. I should have run. Looking back now, I know I should have turned around and climbed up that ladder as fast as my 50-year-old legs could carry me. I should have radioed for backup, sealed the entrance, done anything except stand there like an idiot waiting to become a statistic in some urban legend. But something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was professional pride, the stubborn insistence on completing my inspection no matter what, or maybe it was the realization that whatever was in that cave hadn't attacked me, hadn't charged at me when it first noticed my presence. It was watching, waiting, just as frightened of me as I was of it. I made a decision that probably saved my life. I slowly lowered my flashlight, pointing it at the ground instead of into the darkness. A peace offering of sorts, a way of saying that I wasn't a threat. "I'm not going to hurt you," I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the fear coursing through my veins. "I'm just doing an inspection. I didn't know anyone was living down here. I'm not here to cause trouble." For a long moment, nothing happened. The cave was silent except for the gentle murmur of the underground stream and my own ragged breathing. Then slowly, deliberately, the creature moved into the edge of my light. And I got my first clear look at it. It was massive, easily 7.5 feet tall, maybe even 8 feet if it stood fully upright. The body was covered in reddish-brown hair, thick and matted, dirty from years of life underground. The hair was longer on the arms and back, shorter on the chest and face, creating a pattern that was almost deliberate, almost groomed. The face was what caught my attention most. It was a disturbing blend of ape and human, something that shouldn't exist according to every biology textbook I'd ever seen. The brow ridge was pronounced, heavy and protective, casting shadows over eyes that reflected my flashlight beam with an amber glow, like a cat's eyes but larger, more intelligent. The nose was flat and broad, the mouth wide with lips that looked almost human in their expressiveness. The body was powerfully built, with shoulders broader than any human's, arms that hung down past its knees, and hands that looked strong enough to tear through concrete. Each hand had 5 fingers, just like mine, but longer, thicker, ending in what looked like tough nails rather than claws. The creature was standing on 2 legs, slightly hunched. Whether from habit or from adapting to the low ceiling, I couldn't tell. We stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only 30 seconds. In that moment, I saw intelligence in those amber eyes, not the blank stare of an animal, but something deeper, something that suggested thought, awareness, maybe even fear. The creature was assessing me, just as I was assessing it, trying to determine if I was a threat, trying to decide what to do about this unexpected intrusion into its home. Then it did something I'll never forget, something that changed everything. I thought I knew about evolution, about intelligence, about the world we live in. It raised one massive hand, palm forward, fingers slightly spread, and made a gentle waving motion. It wasn't aggressive, it wasn't threatening. It was communicating, using a universal gesture of acknowledgement, maybe even greeting. This wasn't an animal acting on instinct. This was a thinking being, attempting peaceful contact without thinking, operating purely on instinct and some deep-seated need to respond in kind. I raised my own hand and waved back. The gesture felt absurd, waving at a creature that shouldn't exist in a cave 60 feet below, Portland. But in that moment, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. The creature tilted its head slightly, studying me with those extraordinary amber eyes. The expression on its face changed, the tension in its massive shoulders easing slightly. Then it made that musical vocalization again, softer this time, less threatening, almost inquiring. It was speaking to me in its own way, trying to communicate something beyond mere acknowledgement. "I understand," I said. "Though I wasn't sure I understood anything, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to drive you out. This is your home, and I respect that. But you need to be careful. The noises you're making, the residents above can hear them, they're scared. And scared people call the police. You need to be quieter, especially at night." I don't know if it understood my words, but it seemed to understand my tone, my intention. It lowered its hand slowly and took a step back into the shadows, maintaining eye contact the entire time, watching me carefully to see what I would do next. "I'm going to leave now," I said, backing away toward the entrance to the cave. "I'm not going to report this. As far as the city is concerned, I found evidence of homeless people camping down here, nothing more. But please, please be more careful. Stay hidden. Stay quiet. Because if anyone else finds you, if anyone else comes down here, they won't understand, they'll be afraid, and fear makes people dangerous." The creature watched me back away, its body language suggesting caution but not aggression. I never turned my back on it, couldn't bring myself to do so, even though every moment of our encounter had suggested it meant me no harm. When I reached the entrance to the natural cave, where it connected back to the man-made tunnels, I paused and raised my hand one final time. The creature raised its hand as well, mirroring my gesture one last time. Then I turned and walked quickly back through the tunnels, my mind racing with impossible thoughts, with questions that had no answers, with the weight of a secret that would change everything if anyone ever found out. I filed my report that afternoon, choosing my words very carefully. I documented finding evidence of unauthorized habitation in the maintenance tunnels of Section 7. Including makeshift bedding areas, food waste, and signs of regular occupancy. I noted that the occupant or occupants had likely been accessing the tunnels through broken seals and compromised gates. I recommended installing new security measures and sealing the access points to prevent future unauthorized entry. I made no mention of enormous footprints, no mention of a creature that defied scientific explanation, no mention of an intelligent being living in the darkness beneath our feet. Tom accepted the report without question, relieved that there were no structural issues that would require expensive repairs or emergency work. "Homeless people again," he sighed. "We'll get the gates replaced next week. Good work, Robert. Thorough as always." I nodded and went home, carrying the weight of my secret like a physical burden. For 3 days, everything seemed normal. I continued my regular inspections in other sections of the tunnel system, carefully avoiding Section 7. I told myself that I'd done the right thing, that the creature deserved to be left alone, that some mysteries were better left unsolved. I tried to focus on my work, on my life, on anything except those amber eyes watching me in the darkness, but I couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop wondering what it was, where it had come from, how long it had been living beneath the city. Then on Friday night at 10:30 my phone rang. I was sitting in my small apartment in southeast Portland, watching a Mariners game on television and nursing a beer. When I saw Tom's number on the caller ID, I knew immediately that something had gone wrong. Tom never called after hours unless it was an emergency. "Robert, we've got a situation," he said without preamble, his voice tight with stress. "Some urban explorers broke into the tunnels tonight, group of college kids looking for adventure. One of them is missing. His friends say something attacked them in the dark, something big. They ran, and he didn't make it out. The police are organizing a search and rescue team, and they specifically requested you to guide them. They need someone who knows those tunnels, and you're the best we've got." My stomach dropped. I knew exactly what had happened. Those idiots had ventured too deep, probably stumbled onto the creature's cave and panicked. The creature, startled and frightened by sudden intruders, had defended its territory, and now a kid was missing, possibly hurt, possibly worse. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, already reaching for my keys. I met the police at the 3rd Avenue access point within the hour. There were 6 officers, all heavily armed, all looking tense and uncomfortable about going underground. Leading them was Sergeant Williams, a stern-faced woman in her mid-40s with close-cropped grey hair and the bearing of someone who'd seen too much in her years on the force. She clearly wasn't happy about this operation. "Mr. Mitchell," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you for coming. I'm Sergeant Williams. We've got a 19-year-old kid named Kyle Parker missing down there. According to his friends, they were exploring around Section 7 when something came at them in the dark. They described it as huge, aggressive, making strange sounds. They panicked and ran. When they reached the surface and did a head count, Kyle wasn't with them. We need to find him before something bad happens, if it hasn't already." "Did his friends describe where exactly they were when they were attacked?" I asked. "They were near some kind of old station platform, then went through a maintenance tunnel looking for deeper access. That's when it happened. Do you know where that is?" I nodded, my mouth dry. "Yeah, I know exactly where that is. Let me get my equipment." We descended into the tunnels at 11:15 p.m., our flashlights creating a moving sphere of light in the pervasive darkness. The officers were nervous. I could see it in how they held their weapons, how their lights darted from shadow to shadow, how they startled at every sound of dripping water or scurrying rats. We moved through the main passage towards Section 7, and with every step closer to that cave, my dread grew heavier. When we reached the cave entrance, I could hear something inside, heavy breathing, rapid and labored. Movement, the shuffling of something large across stone. A low moaning that might have been human or might have been something else, distorted by pain and echoing off the cave walls. "Kyle?" Sergeant Williams called out, her voice steady despite the tension I could see in her shoulders. "Kyle Parker, if you can hear me, call out. We're here to help you. You're safe now." The moaning got louder, more urgent. We entered the cave carefully, weapons drawn, flashlights sweeping the space. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I knew what we were going to find, but knowing didn't make the reality any easier to face. And there, in the nest area, lit by 6 powerful flashlights, we found him. Kyle Parker, 19 years old, unconscious or semi-conscious, lying on the pile of blankets that made up the creature's bed. There was a large gash on his forehead, blood matted in his hair and on his face, but he was breathing. He was alive, and standing over him, massive and imposing in the confined space of the cave, was the creature. It looked even larger now, even more intimidating, surrounded by armed police officers whose presence filled the cave with tension and fear. But it wasn't attacking. It wasn't threatening. It was standing guard over the injured boy, one massive hand resting gently on Kyle's shoulder, making that low rumbling sound that I now recognized as distress, as warning, as a plea to leave him alone. "Jesus Christ," one of the younger officers whispered, his voice cracking with fear and disbelief. "What the hell is that thing? Is that real?" "Don't shoot," I said quickly, urgently, stepping forward between the officers and the creature. "Please don't shoot. It's not attacking him. Look at it, really look. It's protecting him. Kyle probably fell and hit his head, and the creature has been keeping him safe, keeping him warm. It's not a threat." But my words came too late, lost in the moment of panic and fear. One of the younger officers, a kid who couldn't have been more than 25, his finger already on the trigger, saw only a monster threatening a helpless victim. He fired. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space, so loud it felt like the cave walls themselves were screaming. The muzzle flash lit up the entire chamber for a split second, creating stark shadows that danced across the stone. I saw the creature jerk backward as the bullet struck its left shoulder, saw the impact tear through flesh and muscle, saw blood spray across the cave wall behind it. The creature roared. It was a sound unlike anything I'd ever heard before, a sound of pain and rage and betrayal that shook the very foundations of the cave. Stalactites trembled above us, dust falling from the ceiling. For a moment, one terrible moment, I thought it would attack us. I thought we'd driven it past the point of peaceful coexistence, forced it into violence it didn't want. Its massive arms spread wide, its teeth bared, every muscle in that powerful body tensed for combat. But then, somehow, through the pain and anger, it made a different choice. Instead of attacking, instead of defending itself or seeking revenge, it turned and fled. It disappeared into the deeper passages of the cave system, moving with surprising speed despite its wounded shoulder, leaving a trail of blood droplets on the stone floor that glowed red in our flashlight beams. The sound of its movement faded into the distance, swallowed by the endless darkness of the underground passages. We got Kyle out of there as quickly and carefully as we could. 2 officers fashioned a makeshift stretcher from their jackets, while Sergeant Williams radioed for an ambulance to meet us at the surface. Kyle was regaining consciousness as we carried him through the tunnels, mumbling incoherently about shadows and eyes and something huge that had kept him warm. He had a severe concussion, several cuts that would need stitches and possible internal bruising, but he would recover. The creature, despite every reason to harm him, had kept him safe. By the time we reached the surface and handed Kyle over to the paramedics, dawn was breaking over Portland. The city was waking up, people starting their morning routines, completely unaware that something impossible existed beneath their feet. Sergeant Williams sealed the cave entrance with police tape and posted guards while she made calls. Within hours, there were 20 officers gathered at the access point, along with city officials, a wildlife expert from the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, and even a representative from the mayor's office. They were planning a full sweep of the tunnel system, a comprehensive operation to find and capture, or, more likely, kill the creature. They talked about it like it was a dangerous animal, a threat to public safety that needed to be eliminated. Nobody used words like intelligence or communication or peaceful. Nobody wanted to hear about the wave, about the protection it had given Kyle, about the choice it had made to flee rather than fight. I sat in my truck in the DOT parking lot that afternoon, watching them plan their operation, and I realized I had a choice to make. I could let them do what they were planning, let them hunt down and destroy something extraordinary, something that had shown more compassion and restraint than most humans I'd known, or I could do something about it. That night, while the city slept and the officials finalized their plans for the morning sweep, I went back down into the tunnels alone. I'd spent 22 years learning every passage, every shaft, every access point. I knew ways in that weren't on any official maps, old maintenance tunnels that had been forgotten decades ago, ventilation shafts that most people didn't know existed. I also knew the tunnel system well enough to guess where a wounded, frightened creature might go to hide, where it might feel safe enough to tend its wounds. I found it in a small side chamber about half a mile from its original nest, in a section of natural cave that connected to the man-made tunnels through a crack in the foundation. The creature was there, curled up against the wall, its massive body making the chamber seem smaller than it was. It was wounded, bleeding from the shoulder where the bullet had torn through muscle and tissue. But it was alive, conscious, and when it saw me enter with my flashlight, it made that rumbling sound again, a warning mixed with pain. "I'm here to help," I said softly, keeping my distance, showing my hands to demonstrate I was unarmed. "I'm not with them. I'm not here to hurt you. They're coming back tomorrow morning with more people, more guns. You need to leave these tunnels, but first, let me look at that shoulder, please." The creature watched me warily, its amber eyes reflecting my flashlight beam. I could see the intelligence there, the calculation, the weighing of risks. Could it trust me? Should it trust me? I'd led the people who shot it right to its door, but I'd also been the first human to show it respect, to communicate peacefully, to acknowledge its right to exist. After what felt like an eternity, it slowly extended its injured arm toward me. Permission granted. It had passed through the muscle without hitting bone, but the wound was already showing signs of infection. I cleaned it as gently as possible and bandaged the shoulder. The creature tensed, but didn't pull away. "You need to leave," I said as I worked. "These tunnels aren't safe for you anymore, but I've studied the maps, and some of these caves connect to passages that lead north, away from the city. If you follow the underground streams, you might be able to travel miles without ever coming to the surface." I finished securing the bandage and sat back. The creature raised its good arm and gently touched the dressing, then looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm sorry we invaded your home. I'm sorry you got shot. You deserve better than this." The creature made that musical vocalization, softer, sadder. Then it reached out with one massive hand and touched my face, its palm rough but surprisingly gentle. The gesture lasted only a moment, but in it I felt acknowledgement, maybe even gratitude. It stood moving carefully because of the injured shoulder and began gathering items from its nest. I helped it gather what it could carry, and together we walked to the back of the cave, where the deepest passages led into darkness. The creature paused at the entrance to one particularly large tunnel, one that sloped downward following the sound of running water. It looked back at me one final time, and I raised my hand in farewell. The creature raised its hand as well, mirroring the gesture, and then it turned and disappeared into the darkness, moving deeper into the earth, away from the city and the humans who had driven it from its home. The city's sweep began at 10 a.m. the next morning. They searched every inch of the tunnel system, every branch, every chamber. They found the cave, found the nest, found the footprints and evidence that something had been living there, but they didn't find the creature. "Looks like whatever it was cleared out," the wildlife expert said. "These animals, they're not stupid. It knew we'd be back." They sealed most of the access points after that, installing new gates and locks. The story died down after a week or two, becoming just another strange chapter in Portland's urban legends. Kyle recovered fully, though he had no memory of the encounter. The officer who shot the creature requested a desk job afterward. He told me he had nightmares about those eyes staring at him in the darkness. I stayed with the Department of Transportation for another 5 years before retiring in 2003. I never went back down to that cave, never searched for any sign of where the creature might have gone. Some mysteries are better left unsolved. But sometimes late at night, I think about those underground streams and cave systems that run for miles beneath Oregon, connecting in ways we've never fully mapped. I think about how easy it would be for something large and intelligent to travel through them undetected, to find new places to live far from human interference. I'm 67 now, and that encounter in the tunnels beneath Portland happened 27 years ago. I don't talk about it much. Most people wouldn't believe me anyway. I know what I saw. I know what I experienced. And I know that one September morning in 1998, I helped save something extraordinary, something that existed in the spaces between our understanding of the world, something that deserved protection rather than fear and violence. The abandoned subway tunnels are still there beneath Portland, still sealed, still forgotten by most of the city above. And sometimes I wonder if another creature like the one I met has found its way down there. I hope not. I hope they've learned to stay away from cities, from humans, from the danger we represent. But if one is down there, hidden in the darkness, living quietly in the spaces we've forgotten, I hope it stays safe. I hope it stays hidden, because some things are meant to remain mysteries. Some creatures deserve to exist beyond our knowledge, beyond our control, beyond our need to catalog and explain everything we encounter. That's my story. That's what happened in September of 1998 beneath the streets of Portland, in the abandoned tunnels where a creature that shouldn't exist made its home before moving on to somewhere safer, somewhere wild, somewhere we'll never find it. And that's exactly how it should be.